Welcome back to Cultivating Truth, a podcast where faith and culture collide. I'm your host, Aaron Davis. And if you are familiar with our podcast, you might have heard my story before. If you have not, it goes a little bit like I wanted to pursue acting back whenever I was in high school. I wanted to do the whole thing, move out to LA and Hollywood and dive into the movie world. But at the same time, the Lord was working in my heart, and I knew that I also was called to ministry. And I felt that if I were to go out and pursue movies in Hollywood, I didn't think that I was going to make it because I knew that I was not mature enough in my faith. I didn't have a community. I was fairly a new believer at the time, and I just didn't know where to go. So instead, I went down the path that I know that the Lord was actually calling me to, and that was pursue ministry within the arts. And that led me to seminary, my family, and to now being here with you. But at that point in time, not that I have any regrets or anything like that, I know that I wish I had someone like our next guest in my life, someone who could fuel me in practical advice on how to maintain my integrity, be steady in my faith, but also pursue this world that God has called me to with a mature heart and spirit. Now, I know that the Lord had a specific path for me, and I am grateful that it has led me here to introduce you to people who may help you understand more about the arts, media, and faith. So today we have a very special guest with us, and this is Venus Monique. Venus is a multi-award-winning actor, producer, and lifelong Texan, the founder of Personal Powerhouse, which is a Christian company that helps actresses build their careers with integrity. Her experience with stage performance and choreography makes her a dynamic actor with a broad range of ability. She loves participating in movies that make you want to be a better version of yourself, taking on challenging roles, helping other entrepreneurs bring their ideas to life, and having deep conversations over coffee. She is also the star of one of the faith world's most popular shows, Vindication.
Come on, let's go now.
I said, not right now. 78 Corvette.
Yeah. Whoa, what you doing? Are you crazy?
Think a 40 will make it all the way through that engine block?
No.
Venus, it is so good to have you today. Thank you for joining us for the Cultivating Truth podcast. Last night, I saw a trailer for the upcoming season. I believe it's season 4 of Vindication, and it looks like it got picked up by Angel Studios. And I saw a familiar face, Venus. It looks like there's some big things going on with Vindication, and it looks like you got some big projects. So what's going on? Tell us what's happening in your world these days.
Yeah, the Angel Studios thing is recently announced. So Vindication has been just kind of backed by Redeem TV, but for season 4, somehow it worked out. Angel Studios picked it up, so they're going to be showing seasons 1 through 3 and now season 4 on their platform starting in March. So that's kind of a big one. And then I've got some other projects, a feature film coming up in a couple of weeks, actually, that covers the topic of autism. And it is such a good script, like a beautiful script, just to kind of shine a light on how families operate when they have autism in the family. It's beautiful. And then I just finished a spiritual warfare series. It is so cool. We did the pilot episode. This guy has been experiencing these true stories for years, and he's been putting them on YouTube, and everyone's been telling him like, hey, you need to turn this into a series. So he finally is, and we did the pilot episode, and then that is going to be making its round soon.
Well, fantastic. When you got onto Vindication, did you know that it was going to continue to just grow and blow up? Because, the goal of any actor and actress is you're going to jump in and hopefully it works out. But majority of the time, it might not even get picked up after the first season.
Right. Yeah. And this one is really interesting because he didn't even mean to turn it into a series. So the creator of it was just doing a short film, and the short film was so well received that people were like, well, hey, aren't you going to do another one? So he was like, okay, I'll do another short film. But then it was well received again. They're like, we want more of this detective guy. And so then he finally turned it into one season. And then that season did so well. We want season two. And it's like crazy. And so to be brought on board in the beginning of something you don't know is going to grow to the extent that it has is such a gift and totally a God thing, because I never auditioned for it. It was a direct offer from the creator, the writer and director.
Wow. If someone has never seen Vindication, how would you describe it? The best I've heard before is it's almost like a faith-based, like Law and Order or NCIS, which I'm not as familiar with. How would you describe it?
You know what's funny is a lot of people say that NCIS and I think they say Blue Bloods, but I've not really watched either of those. But it definitely is a crime drama, but it is different in the sense that it's a mind bender, because the way that he's formatted is different. You think that it's going in one direction, but then the writer, Jared, he has just completely flipped it, and it in a way that you almost feel convicted for your thinking and your judging throughout the series. And I don't know how his brain comes up with this, but that is, I think, why people love it so much, is because it is a mind bender, but it also has the foundation of who Jesus is and what it is to be a Christian, but it is not overt. It's not in your face in any way. So it's like you're finally getting to watch a crime drama that's clean and interesting and takes you on that suspenseful ride that most of us really enjoy. So I think he encompasses all really well in one series.
I think that's an interesting fact, because I heard it once said that one of the biggest problems in Christian storytelling is that we lack mystery, is that we feel the need that essentially the audience is, I don't know, they're just not competent enough and they need to have everything spoon-fed to them. And I love that we're making dramas, we're making shows and movies that's allowing the mind to work. I think Jesus did that in his storytelling. The rich young ruler comes to mind, when you're thinking it's all, not the rich young ruler, I'm sorry, the prodigal son, is everyone thinks it's about the prodigal son. And then at the end, he's like, no, actually, it's about the brother, and everyone's like, whoa, okay, that's even deeper, and there's layers to the storytelling. So I think that's so cool that they're tackling those issues.
Mm-hmm. Me too. And he does a really good job of tackling the tougher issues in a very tasteful way. I mean, there are episodes about sexting, there are episodes about trafficking, there are episodes about infidelity. I mean, there are a lot of different episodes and topics that are tackled, but it's not in a way that you need to close your eyes or you don't want your kids to watch. It's very well, cleanly done, which I appreciate so much. Being a Christian in this industry, I want to tell the good stories, but that aren't tacky.
Yes. Well, what got you into that? You want to tell stories, as you just said. So as an actress, you are a storyteller. Tell us about your story. Where did this all begin for Venus?
It's a very funny beginning, because I never thought about acting really. And then for some reason, my mom and I moved to a new town. I saw an ad in the back of the paper for actors and models. And I was like, well, try this. We're in this new town. And I tried the modeling and they were like, I'm sorry, you're too short, but you should try the acting. And I'm like, I never wanted to do acting, but sure, I'll try it. So I did it. I was signed with an agency for a year. I went to LA for a couple of weeks for this big workshop, and I had to do some really dumb training in my book. I was like, why am I laying on the ground? Why am I acting like a squirrel? This is so dumb. And I was like, no, I'm never doing acting. I hated it. Like, it was never going to be in my future. And then fast forward to college, I was walking across campus, and just on the sidewalk by myself, I glanced at the theater building, and all of a sudden I got this immediate download that was like, I want to do acting. Why am I not getting my degree in theater? But at the exact same time that thought was coming in, the other part of my brain was like, what are you talking about? You hate acting. So it was like my thought was fighting with this new thought, and I knew that was God telling me, hey, this is what you're going to do. And that day I knew that God was telling me to do acting. So it just all very quickly, my brain was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I know what happens to actors when they get really, really known and really far in the industry. They tend to compromise. They lose themselves. All these stories we hear about drugs and all this stuff. So that same day I went to my dorm, and in a notebook, I wrote down my boundaries of things that I won't do. Not because I was married, not because of whatever, because I wasn't married at that time. It was just, here's the boundaries that I'm going to put in place. If God has called me to this, it's probably going to go far. And I need to know where my line in the sand is so I don't compromise when I'm tempted by money or opportunity or connections or whatever that is. So God told me to do it. And then after that, I did some plays in theater. After that, I graduated, went to a small town. Crazy enough, booked a lead role in my very first feature film. I wasn't invited to audition for it. Like, I submitted my stuff. They said, I was like, how do I get in on this? They were like, send us your headshot and your resume. And I'm like, cool, don't really have that, but I'll send what I have. I sent it to them. They didn't respond. But because I had found out where they were holding auditions, what day and what time, I was like, well, they didn't say no. So I just showed up. They put me last on the list. Somehow I booked the lead in that, booked another thing, kept booking a couple of things, and then decided, like, if God called me to do this, I need to go where there are true opportunities. So I moved to Austin, Texas, and started doing like the acting workshops, the classes, the agents, all of that stuff. And that's really where everything started taking off.
Okay. So you're not originally from Austin?
No, I'm from West Texas, little town out there. So.
Oh, okay. My wife has family in Odessa and Midland.
I know what that is. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say East Texas and West Texas I feel are very different.
Oh, yes. Oh, big time. Big time. Very fun.
Okay. So small town girl moving out to the bigger city to pursue acting.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because, like, I when people think, say that, it's your passion or it's your joy or it's your whichever, I'm like, actually, for me, it's just more of a duty. Like, I was told to do this and I feel like I'm supposed to do it well. So that's my mission, I suppose.
Well said. And I love that you said that as you knew that the Lord was pursuing you to this, that you knew that you needed to be held accountable. I'm not going to go into my story, but I felt that I wasn't ready for that. And so I think it's so cool that you, at the very least, had a maturity to know that your faith is at stake in this. Like, there are dark waters, deep, treacherous territories in this field. So did you ever have to go back to that journal to remind yourself and to keep steady, to hold you accountable?
When I write something down, I tend to have like a photographic memory. So I remember what I wrote. And so those really did guide me when I would choose gigs. And there were things in Austin, I would book the role because you only see a piece of the audition. And then I would book the role and then get to read the whole script. And I'm like, ooh, that's not for me. And so based on, these boundaries I've already created, I knew what I wasn't going to do. So I would just write them back and be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the opportunity. After reading through it, it doesn't look like this is my cup of tea, but I really hope you guys, find someone who fits the role perfectly. And I've had to do that several times, even amongst Christian projects with like my Christian friends. The character doesn't align with what I have already set for myself. And it's such a bummer when you want to work with your friends and they've got like this really great story, but they're not willing to budge on the character and I'm not willing to budge on my morals. And so it's been tricky, but at the end of the day, I feel good about it. And that reminds me of when I first moved to Austin, I did acting classes with this acting coach and she had a very strong reputation. She was very, very well known in the community. And I was like, I don't know how she's going to do with my boundaries, but I need to let her know. So I audited one of her classes and I was like, cool, I think I want to do this class. I need to have a conversation with her. And we were sitting there and I told her, I said, just so you know, I'm not up for doing scenes that this, scenes that, scenes that this, and blah, blah, blah. And she said, yeah, I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to look back down your own mountain and be okay with everything you've done. Wow. And I was like, oh, she's so right. And that message or that comment has stuck with me because she is so right. And to add on to that, a few years into that class, I was sitting by another actress friend of mine who was the same age. And we were talking about one of the scenes and how she didn't want to do what was in her scene. And I was like, well, you can tell her you don't want to do it. And she was like, no, I can't. And I was like, yes, you can. I have told her that I won't do this, that, and the other. She goes, you can do that? And I was like, yes, you can do that. Like, you are your own person. You have your own values and it's up to you to express them to others. So anyway, long way of saying, yes, it's been worth it. And I do stick to them.
What a great perspective, because the wisdom that you received up front from the Lord in that conviction, I think is beautiful, because you hear about this all the time. I think I just went through a biography over an actress here recently, but you'll hear it on, talk show hosts or whatnot, is after, an actor or actress has made it, quote unquote, and, they're doing very well, and then now they have kids, and now they have a family, and they're like, oh yeah, that's really awkward. We try not to show them that. And in this field, you're absolutely right. We are literally recording so that someone can watch whenever. We can go back 100 years ago and see the first film, and we know what they did, what they looked like, what they moved. And you're absolutely right. This is not, some people say it's just a job. Yeah, but it's you. That's still you that we're watching, and you did this. And I think people get big dreams and they get stars in their eyes, and they say, oh, and even men and women of faith, they say, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make Jesus known and Jesus famous. And, maybe it'll be in an award speech, but you look at the resume and the films and the content, and you're like, it's not really glorifying Christ. Not to be judgmental, but you see that even an embarrassment in the future, when they have their families and they look back.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we have to do a thing to realize, oof, that didn't feel good. I don't want to do that again. But we don't realize it before we get into it. So sometimes it's like I'm kicking myself for doing it, but at least I did it so that I know I don't ever want to do that again. And at the same time, I know that even amongst my community, which we're going to talk about, but we all have different convictions and things that God has called us to do. And some of the actresses feel called into the secular world to go be a light. Some of them don't. Some of them have different levels of their boundaries and like where their line is in the sand. So it's kind of like, God's got us each on our own path. But I also hear you in that, in us wanting to glorify Christ, how are we operating day to day, and the choices that we're making? So yeah, totally hear you. Absolutely.
Well, already you're feeding us with, I think, perspectives that many of us don't think through going into acting. And so help us know a little bit about what is the acting life like. So many people think that, they're just thinking of the red carpet in Hollywood whenever they think of actors or actresses. If they're not filming a movie, they're on the red carpet, glammed out, What does the average acting life look like? As someone who's even on a consistent show, you've had multiple seasons of work, you have other projects, you're speaking at conferences, but what's the acting life look like?
Unless you are like an A-list actor, you still have a day job of some sort, because acting is, even if you are consistently in a film or something, if you're not getting residuals from a commercial or a network series, you've got to make your income somehow. So a lot of actors still have a day job. We don't necessarily post about it very often unless it somehow complements our acting work. But I guarantee you, many of us still have like that 9 to 5 or something flexible that's paying the bills. And a lot of acting isn't necessarily the filming, it's the auditioning to get the roles. The auditioning part takes up a massive chunk of time. And even more so now that it's all virtual, like we're doing self-tapes on our computer, which means we've got to set up our own lighting. We've got to do our own editing afterwards. We've got to put the edited pieces together and then send it off as a slate shot. We've got to, be our own, just everything. Whereas before COVID time, before all the virtual stuff, we would walk. I would drive 3.5 hours to Dallas, sit in the waiting room for a couple of minutes, walk into the audition room for about 4 minutes, tell them my name, do my audition, drive 3.5 hours back home. So I would just go there. They would do all the stuff and I'm done. But now we're auditioning at home. So we're getting more auditions because it's easier. And then we're having to be our own editor and wearing all these crew hats to get it done. So in those auditions, we're not booking 100%. And that is something a lot of actors struggle with, is the rejection. But really, if God's called us to it, it's not rejection. It is just that's not what God had for us. And I think if we lean on that, it's a lot easier to get through the next thing and the next thing. But yeah, it's kind of the life of an actor is just that, having another thing that pays the bills, and then auditioning a lot and doing, workshops, trainings, classes to get better. watching things online, reading acting books, all of these things to help us improve ourselves. So when the opportunity knocks, we're ready to step forward into it. Not all red carpets though.
For sure. Tell me about your mindset or what you coach yourself through on that rejection. You mentioned rejection, and I know I've heard actors and actresses, they just said it's hard. It's you walk into an audition room and they immediately they're just judging. That's why they are there, is to judge whether or not you are going to fit for the role. Whether do you look a certain, do you have the right look? Is your height correct? All of the things. What's that like? What goes through your mind, and maybe how do you coach yourself in that process?
Yeah, I think one of the good things, and maybe not good things, is they don't tell you why you don't book the role. So you don't really know, like, was I not good enough, or does my hair look funny? Like, you don't really know. But that's also a bummer, because you're like, well, I can't fix what I don't know. Like, if my acting wasn't good, I can take classes. If my, this doesn't make sense, if my eyes were the wrong color, I can't change that. So you can have a piece about it. But for me, it's never felt like rejection, honestly. I've either thought I wasn't good enough, like my training isn't good enough. And if that's the case, I'm not bummed about it. That means there's a deficit there, and I can go get skilled and I can do better next time. It's not like oh, poor me. It's like hey, you need to get your chops up better. If you didn't book that and it was based on your ability, then there's training out there, and it's up to you to go take the classes. This is just like my own mental thing. But then the other part of it is okay, this is awful, but I don't love auditioning anymore. So thankfully, I think because of Vindication, my work has become a little more known. And then going to conferences and meeting people and just having that trust with others, I've had a lot of direct offers. So I haven't had to audition, and I'm like, I really like that. But now, like, if someone wants to work with me and it's a good role and they send me the script and it's a direct offer, I'm more than likely gonna be like, yeah, I'd love to come on board. Don't have to audition, and I love your project. But for the actors who do feel rejected or defeated, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that this is a long game. Like, acting is such a long game. You've got to stay with it. You've got to improve your skills, improve your networking, improve the opportunities, and, maybe your agent. There's a lot of factors that go into being a consistent working actor. And then the other thing is just trusting that if I didn't book this, God's got something else for me. And there may be a reason I didn't book it. Maybe somebody else is going to have a conversation on set that I couldn't have. Or maybe there is something on set that would, inhibit me from being able to do whatever this next thing is. So trusting that God has got it, that he is in full control of this calling that he gave to us. And we just, like that saying is, leave it open-handed. And if you book it, great. If you don't, just trust God that there's a reason for that.
Wow. I can see where you would enjoy getting just the straight up calls, of course. But I think that's a great perspective. I think it's a good perspective, because you hear that and it seems exhausting. I acted whenever I was in high school, and I've done a few auditions after, going into college. But for the most part, I enjoy my role as a director and producer whenever I work on projects. And it's usually, a collaborative behind the scenes effort. And so I can see where that would be exhausting for individuals. And I think you have to have your mindset right. And it sounds like you have to have something that's already been mentioned, but a community, a group that you can, you mentioned your agency and people who are going to allow you to grow and make yourself better. And I think one of the most appealing things that stuck out to me whenever I saw your acting reel when you were at ICVM was that you talked about big, strong passion of yours, and that is your passion for community with Personal Powerhouse. So tell me about Personal Powerhouse. What is that? What's going on? And why did you start this group?
Yes, this one is a God thing. And I love it when he does this, because it gives me such security to move forward in it. But it actually started out as me wanting to teach life skills to my nieces and nephews. So I was posting stuff on Instagram and about just different life skills I didn't know when I graduated. And what I found out was there were all these young actresses that were following my account. And I thought, I wonder if these girls know that they can set boundaries and they can turn down projects and they can do all, because they're so young in the industry. I want them to know. And so what I did was I just felt like I felt like God put it on my heart to form a community for them with mentors. So I got myself and a couple of my other actress friends, they were mentors, and we would meet on Zoom for a couple of years, 3 times a month, talking about different topics, talking about faith, talking about industry stuff, talking about, girl stuff. And it was so good. And what ended up happening was there were ladies my age who would say, hey, can I join your sisterhood? Can I join the young sisterhood? And I'm like, well, no, like the age limit cutoff is here. And I don't want, I want this to be their space. I don't want it to be overtaken by women who are more confident and who could dominate the conversation. So I said no to that for quite a while. And then I just felt like there were so many women asking for this community that I was like, Lord, is this something else I need to add to my plate? Because I will do it and I want to, but you know the future. And I finally felt like he was like, yes, just create that community. Oh my goodness, Erin, I got flooded with so many women wanting to join that community that I was mind boggled. I had no idea. I thought maybe 5 to 10 ladies, but so many women wanted to join. And what I found out was in this industry, we often find people like at our church who are Christians and get that whole side of the world. But then we find friends who are actors and in the industry, but they're not necessarily Christian. So it's like, it's hard to find people who are Christians in the industry and people who relate to the nonstop auditioning and the getting rejected and, all these things they don't understand. So I found out that all these women just wanted other women who understood them and who were supportive of like, hey, you got an audition. That's awesome. It's okay if you didn't book it. But it's been such a life giver for me to find my people. And I think it's been such a life giver based on the testimonials and the feedback we get. I think it's been such a life giver for the women to find their girls, because we go to conferences together, we carpool, we room together, we meet on Zoom a couple of times a month. We have an online community. We're always helping each other look for roles or opportunities in the area. And it's been so good for the soul to find the people who get you.
I think I've seen you and your crew for at a few events, and I can testify that what I notice is that there's a group of women who look confident, who look like they are here to work, network, do their thing. They might have their own, lives back at home that they need to attend to and take care of. But there's definitely a sense of professionalism for a handful of girls that I've interacted with within that community. And so whenever you talked about it, and I knew that you were kind of the leader of the group, I was like, oh, this is awesome, because it's so true. And I go back to your notes when you first started into this, is I think we have to be accountable for everyone. When I speak at youth conferences or if I was teaching, I always say is, if you show me someone who's not accountable to anything, then you're showing me a dangerous person. And whether that is with yourself, being held accountable by yourself, you're writing stuff in your own notebook and it's, written as my, guidebook, handbook, whatever, or you're meeting with women in Personal Powerhouse and you get to talk about the things that you're wrestling with or what to do next. I think that's it's needed. And that's what, Christ died for. Christ died for the church, for his believers to not work as individuals, but to come together in community. And I just think that this is a wonderful opportunity. And you've been doing this for a few years now. Is that right?
The company started in 2019, and I think I started the first sisterhood in late 2020.
And you've had great success stories from what I've heard.
Yeah. When I asked the ladies to kind of share their story, I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that you, I read, the few texts that come through and the messages that I get, but for them to do that video testimonial, I was like, oh, I didn't even know, y'all. So yeah, so neat.
Well, that's so cool. And encouraging. And, a lot of our ministry is interacting with young actors who are aspiring to dive into this world, and they need resources, they need guidance, they need wisdom. So if you were to interact with a younger gal who is aspiring to go into acting, and they have all the questions, right? And you would know what those questions probably are, but they're thinking of, how am I going to provide for myself? Is this really something I feel like the Lord wants of me? Is this even really a job, or is this something of vanity? You know, all those things that I think flood our minds when going into this field. What would you say as almost like a generic encouragement to those who are wrestling with pursuing acting?
Yeah, two things that immediately come to mind is what you just said. Number one, praying and just making sure that God really is calling you to this, and it isn't your own vanity that's wanting to be known or have a platform. Because if you're not called to this, many actors will tell you it's very difficult. It's very, it can be depressing almost to not be getting work. You're doing all these classes and all these things, and you're not, it seems like nothing is happening. There's no traction, and it can be extremely discouraging and make your soul sad. So I would very immediately say, pray about it and make sure that God has it for you. And if you feel like God's not really giving you an answer, you can't really tell if you should or not, fast. Fasting is so good. I heard a quote once that was, praying connects us to God and fasting disconnects us from the world. And I think sometimes we need to be disconnected from the world to hear what it is that God has for us. So if you're feeling like you can't tell what God is asking you to do, just fast, 1 day fast, 3 day fast, whatever you can do, and seek him in this first. And then if he has called you to it, my second thing is get those boundaries on paper. Because like I said earlier, when you're tempted by, oh my gosh, I get to work with this star, or I get to work with so-and-so, let me backtrack there. Don't ever put a star on a pedestal first. Because you see them and they seem like they're a great person and their social media makes them seem like they're great, you don't actually know. And really, God is the only one who should be on a pedestal, but there should be no one on a pedestal that makes you want to compromise your values or your convictions in any way. But if you are tempted by the money or by that connection or that opportunity, getting your boundaries on paper is extremely important. And the reason I say put it on paper is because you have to put a period on it, which means you have to finish your thought. So you have to have a firm thought of what you want. If you're just kind of thinking like, yeah, I don't think I would kiss someone. Yeah, I don't think I would do this. I don't think, but it's not firmed up. So if you can firm up that thought and say, I will not do XYZ, period. I will, not accept projects that XYZ, period. And if those are very firm statements in your mind, then it makes it easier to guide your decisions in the future. So top two, make sure that God's got this for you. And then secondly, make sure you know where your lines in the sand are so you don't step into something you don't want.
And you know this from your own personal experience, and you've been helping out women for several years now. And so I think that this is great and fantastic wisdom. And with that being said, Personal Powerhouse, the community that you've built up, is that something that people can join into? Is that a closed group?
It is for Christian actresses specifically, and 16 and up. It was 18. We recently lowered it to 16 and up. There is a sort of like application for the girls to fill out, because that vetting process, I think, is what makes us really a really strong group, a really cohesive group. We've had men try to join. We've had people who aren't actresses try to join. So it's not like, hey, you pay the membership fee and you get in. There is a vetting process, but I think that makes it better that way. So, yeah.
For sure. And when they're a part of this group, do they get tied in specifically to you? Is there a broader group of community? What's that look like for them?
Yeah. So when they join the membership, they get to come to our big group meetings. So I lead the meetings. We have them the second and fourth Fridays of every month. And we have a different topic, and I will bring in guest speakers like casting directors or managers, somebody to teach you how to do a podcast, all kinds of different topics, guests and topics. And then kind of whatever the girls are needing at the moment. Like if we sometimes will do a recap from ICBM. What are all the golden nuggets that everybody got who went? Share your experience so that other ladies can know if they want to go next year. But we do that. And then we have our retreat. We do a retreat where a few of us get together. We're all over the country, including the UK. And we also have our online community, which is 24/7. So if you're needing help with anything acting related, that's why we're there. We also plug resources to each other. I mean, we have prayer partners. So in between the meetings, we're connecting with someone consistently through the couple of weeks. And that I think has been a game changer because it's allowed us to go deeper, getting to know each other than just these, 1.5 hour meetings every couple of weeks. But yeah, so they come in and access to everything, really.
And if they don't get a community, even whether it's Personal Powerhouse or not, what are the biggest fears that people should prepare for if we are not in community?
Oh, man. One of the girls in the suite actually put it really well. She said there's a big difference in friendship and community. And there is such a difference because friendships, they go so far and people don't want to step on your toes and they don't want to mention something that maybe needs mentioned to you. But in community, you're developing the deeper roots together. So you do feel comfortable saying, hey, have you noticed that you've started doing this? Or do you really think it's a good idea? And what we have found is there are, I don't want to say wolves in sheep's clothing, but in the Christian industry, there are those who, take the name of God in vain. So they are pretending to be Christians for their own vanity so they can get something from others because Christians are very quick to support Christians. So in community, we're able to say, hey, I've worked with that person, just so you know, hey, so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so already had an experience with that person or that production company or all of that. But friendships, it's kind of like, I want to tell you this, but I don't know if I'm allowed to. But in community, it's like, hey, you're my people and I got your back. So I think there is a strength in a internal, I don't want to say power, but like there's just a power that comes from having community and having these people who are with you in the trenches doing this whole thing with you.
Well said. And with that, there are community opportunities. We've talked about ICVM and a Christian Worldview Film Festival is a thing in March. There's all these different opportunities. And I know you're going to be at, I think it's a new one in Indiana, right? Can you tell me about that?
Yes, that one is called Purpose Fest. And it is their first year having it, 2025. So the folks who are leading it, they've got such a good, I mean, they are so on top of things. I have been informed of everything months and months prior. They're organized. They've got everyone laid out, all of our topics, and they had this done before 2025 even started. So I'm really excited to attend and see all these workshops and panelists and speakers that they've got lined up. But yeah, it'll be in Indiana. It's called Purpose Fest. Their website is purposefest.net. And I think one of the things that is a little different about their festival is they are also bringing in, I think, Christian, maybe influencers. They were talking about that. I haven't looked at the roster in a while, but it's not just filmmakers and it's not just, actors, but it's kind of like Christians in media that they are bringing onto there. So I'm excited to see how it goes.
So Purpose Fest is August 7th through the 9th in Corydon, Indiana, which is right around my neck of the woods in Louisville, Kentucky. So I'm definitely going to tell all my friends and people who are in the film world and so you said influencer, just media and arts. This would be something for them, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, fantastic. Yep. Well, it sounds like you have a big year coming up between Purpose Fest, Vindication, the films that you're working on right now. Is there anything as we are in closing that you would like to either give a shout out to or make note of as we land this plane? Because this has been fantastic.
Yes. Okay. So for anyone, I like to give very practical things that people can do, not just theoretical, like, oh, that would be cool. But I have for anyone who is wanting to get into the acting world and they're not quite sure, like, how do I even get started? It's such a big industry. I also had that question and that struggle when I was starting. And so what I did is put together, I think it's a 4-page guide of the things that I did to get into the industry. So there are a few things with the pros and the cons of me doing that, and then extra tips about each thing that you can do that I didn't know to do or didn't do. And then it also just add in some extra tidbits about resumes and all this stuff that will come in the future. But if anybody wants that guide, it's personalpowerhouse.com/acting guide. And that's it. It's a completely free download. So personalpowerhouse.com/acting guide.
Okay. And we'll put that link into the bio and everything that this podcast is going out to. So that's a great resource. Thank you so much for that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Well, Venus, you have filled this entire podcast up with wisdom, practical advice. You said it, practical, not just theoretical in the clouds, practical steps that we can take to grow ourselves in this industry. And your wisdom is very appreciated. I appreciate you taking the time to bless us with your stories, your experience, and community that God is blessing you all with. And I pray for the best. I pray that it would continue to grow and that you would continue to lead his people as you were called to do so all those years ago.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And thank you for just providing the opportunity for me to share more about what it is and what we do. Because I think the more that Christians are connected in this industry, the more impact we can have together, even if it's not acting, just throughout the whole, Christian segment. I think it brings us more stability in the industry, which is awesome.
Thank you for watching this episode of Cultivating Truth. Please be sure to share this episode with somebody who you think it might help them, educate them. As Venus said, we have resources for you, so please be sure to check out the bio and be sure to follow Venus on our social media accounts and maybe consider supporting Personal Powerhouse if you are a young actress looking to build your community, a faith-based artist. We'd love to have you join our Aletheia Legacy community. You can do so by going to aletheia.legacy.com and subscribing and becoming a community member. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And before we go, I want to thank you for supporting us and thank you for joining our mission in spreading Jesus by spreading the arts. It is only together that we can collaborate in order to leave behind a legacy of truth. Blessings.